Hello again. Today I'm going to show you how to create CRAM cannons, what sort of information you can get from the CRAM cannon and how they kind of work together with the parts. I've decided to actually create the platform before building it before the start of the video this time. After building it before the start of the video. I'll get it right one day. So I'm going to create a CRAM cannon. So CRAM cannons contain a number of parts. You must have a firing piece, you must have a barrel, you must have some kind of loader and an ammo box. Everything else is pretty much optimal. So I'm going to show you a slightly more advanced one on purpose so that I can describe more of the different parts that you can use. So I'm going to start off with a 6-way connector. I recommend always starting with a 6-way connector because then you can connect, well, pretty much anything to it. So I'm going to go up by 3. I've got a mirror on already, so it makes building a lot faster and a lot easier. I'm now going to put a firing piece on the top. So, as you can see from the information on the side here, with a shell diameter by default of 200 millimeters, a muzzle velocity of 60 meters a second, which is basically the speed it comes out at the end of the barrel. You can also see that by default it comes with 34 kinetic damage. Now that can be increased by increasing the speed of the shell. We can also see that we've got a 45 azimuth and a 45 elevation firing arc, which basically means you have 90 degrees from left to right, 90 degrees from top to bottom. So, the first thing I'm going to do is put a barrel on it. Now, if you want a manoeuvrable barrel, I would highly suggest putting some motor-driven barrels on to start with. Start with 2 or 3, depends on the size of the gun. If you have a short stubby gun, you can have a really high power, but it's a really slow shell. But it does mean that you can point it in multiple directions. A lot easier. If you have a long gun, if you want it to be able to do the different arcs and ranges, you need to have a lot more motor-driven barrels. So I'm going to start with 3. So the azimuth doesn't change, but the muzzle velocity is increased. It's gone up by 16, which isn't huge, but the kinetic damage has gone up also by about the same amount. So I'm now going to add some standard barrels to the end. Now I'm going to show you, I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to show you the azimuth and elevation firing arc. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. So we've got 3 on. As you can see, the azimuth and elevation firing arc is still 45. Going to add another one, still 45. And now we're down to 22.5. So we've increased the speed of the shell to 94 now, just because of the length of the barrel. We've also increased the kinetic damage. But now we're at such a long distance that our azimuth and firing arc have adjusted too, and as has our inaccuracy and recoil. So if I remove one piece, you can see our inaccuracy has increased, our recoil hasn't changed. So the recoil is generally only affected by the size of the shell. The inaccuracy is affected by the length of the barrel. So if you want a really accurate barrel, the longer one is the one you're going to be after. So I'm going to go up until it's below 1 degree. Okay, so we're at 0.95 now. We've only got 11 degrees of firing arc, which is basically 22.5 degrees in total, left to right, up and down. If you want a pretty targeted system, because you're on an axis, check out my axis video if you want to know a bit more about axes, then it doesn't really matter about your left or right. However, if you want to be able to shoot planes, you want that elevation firing arc to be higher. So if we go back 2 or 3 till we get 45 degrees again, and remove the next piece and change it, you can now choose to have a flash suppression barrel or a recoil suppression barrel. Now, say you've got quite a small vehicle, it's quite light, and it's quite easy to be pushed around, say by force because of a gun being fired. You want to use the recoil one really. If you don't really want to be seen at long distance firing massive shells, put a flash suppression one on the end. It will slow it down, as will the recoil one, but it'll give it a nice cool look on the end, and it will also give you some improvements on the actual fire. I'm going to go ahead and put a recoil suppression barrel on the end. Okay, so that's on there now. You can still see we've got 45 azimuth and 45 firing arc. And our inaccuracy is 1.23 degrees. Our recoil went down to 3249. It was 3822. That's a massive 600 reduction. You can stick more on the end if you want, and your recoil will drop and drop and drop. But just remember, the longer you make it, the less your elevation and azimuth is. However, your inaccuracy still improves. So you could replace all of your barrels with recoil suppression barrels. But look, our muzzle velocity is only 60 now. The shell has been reduced massively, which means our range is reduced massively, and as is the kinetic damage. So you've got to try and work out what kind of speed and what kind of distance you want your shell to do. So I'm going to leave with just one on the end. So we've got our 45 azimuth. We've got a decent 82 meters a second speed, 47 kinetic. That's just the barrel. So the next thing I'm going to put on, what shall we put on next? Some 6-way connectors. They sound good. Okay, the good news with 6-way connectors is you only need one if you want to use gauge increases. I'll demonstrate this in a minute. So I'm going to put a straight line from the back of the firing piece back by, is it 6? 5. So let's make a 6th one. So we now have 6 in length. This does absolutely nothing at all to it. It just allows you to connect more stuff to it. We are going to now add some autoloaders. Now there's two types of autoloader. We've got the manual orientation and the automatic orientation. There is a slight difference between them. I think the manual ones are slightly faster, but you might as well use the automatic orientation ones. So I'm going to go ahead and put them on both sides, all the way along, like this. Okay, so let's have a look. Our speed hasn't increased, our shell size hasn't increased, our reload time has. However, we don't actually have anything to fire yet. There's no weapon, no ammo, because there is no ammo. So you can see the reload time is 1.47. If I remove one of those, it's still 1.47. This is because we haven't actually increased it, because we haven't put any ammo boxes on yet. As soon as we put ammo boxes on, now our speed will increase. So if I go back to the shell, the barrel now, 0.66. So we've just reduced our reload time by an entire second just by putting ammo boxes on. We could go ahead and have a super fast reload by having absolutely loads of ammo boxes, but that's your choice. I'm going to go ahead and put on some high explosive pellets. Now there are 4 types of pellets: high explosive, hardener, fragmentation and EMP. High explosive do a large area amount of damage, and if you've got a large gauge shell, brilliant. Fragmentation pellets, brilliant again, but good for causing damage over an area, not necessarily good for damage penetration wise, unless you use it with hardener pellets. Now hardener pellets basically increase your AP, your armor penetration. So this effectively means you can punch holes through enemy armor. You could make something that could get through heavy armor in one shot, and have also attached fragmentation pellets so that when you get through your heavy armor, you completely cause chaos inside an engine room or an ammo room by destroying everything inside behind the armor. So combinations of these work together. The last one I haven't mentioned yet, EMP pellets. Brilliant for taking out AI, brilliant for taking out anything that can conduct electricity and go through to, say, an engine. So you could take out an engine. Pretty much useless for anything else though. They don't do that much damage at all. So my personal recommendation for anyone who's looking to do damage is stick with the high explosive. Attach them directly to the autoloader, and that actually increases their power. You can attach them to other things. For example, you can attach them to the connector. You don't get quite the same amount of power given to them. So I've now done that. I'm going to attach different ones along the bottom because I can, not because I need to, but this is just to demonstrate. So I'm going to stick some hardener pellets along the bottom. Okay, so we've now got some hardener pellets along the bottom. If we look at our weapon, we can see we now also have 191 kinetic damage, which has been increased by having the hardener pellets, 287 explosive. This has actually been reduced by having the hardener pellets. It was over 500. As I say again, this is all down to combinations. You choose the combination, you get what you can. I'm going to now increase the size of our gauge. The last thing. This is probably the most important part of a CRAM cannon to make them work really well. Choose whatever you like. They're all design based really. They don't make any difference at all. They all do the same thing. So, say I could, for example, build with a line slot down the middle like this. Just as long as they're attached to a connector, it doesn't matter. Once you've built the first line though, you can attach them to themselves. So you don't actually need any further connectors. As I mentioned earlier, you only need one connector. So, what size have we made it? Well, you can see the barrel's already increased in size. It's huge now. Well, compared to what it was, it's 200 millimeters. It's now 730. So 6 gauges has increased that by 530 mil. The maximum size of shell you can have is 2000. This is a limitation put into the game. Note that the speed's gone up for the shell, because obviously the size and the length of the barrel have increased its speed. So it is good to have a bigger one because you need more force to push it out. I'm going to go ahead and put some more along the bottom now. Okay, we've got 6 more, so we've got a total of 12. That barrel is pretty big now. It's probably around 12 or 1300. Where I go, 1100, 1119 millimeters, and we've just increased our speed by nearly 20 meters a second again. Look at the recoil though. We were down to 3200. We're up to 72,000 now. That's huge. So if you've got a really light boat or a really light vehicle, this recoil could make a huge difference. This is why you need to consider how many pieces you want on here, whether you want to slow your ammo down or not. So I'm going to show you another different gauge increase. I'm going to add to the end the gauge increase corner. So as I say, this is literally for beautification. As you can see, it is basically, well, just beautifying it. There we go. It looks like it was made for it. Well, I say that, but it probably wasn't. You can also see that they've been designed in such a way that the sizes don't fit together properly. Your choice. Obviously it's still a square, still going to use up the square block. Our size is now 1273 with a recoil of 90,000. It's exponential, can you tell? But look at the damage. 5,000 kinetic and 8,000 explosive now. But I didn't increase the number of boxes. The gauge just packs more in. That's it. That's all it does. So we have a pretty big gun. It's pretty basic. There's not a lot on it. So, what have we got? We've got a few other bits. We've got fusing boxes. If you want to figure out how they work, go ahead. I'm not going to bother telling you how they work. I've not even tried it, to be honest. Laser targeters. So, you can use this if you want, because AI will use them. But my personal suggestion would be to use the predictor. As a player, you're more likely to want to use the predictor to work out where your shell is going to go. The predictor, as it states, when you try to attach it to something, it must be connected to a CRAM, and it must be connected to a part of the CRAM. So it could be on the connector or the firing piece. You cannot, well, I don't know, can you put it on there? Let's see. Oh, it looks like you can put it on the gauge increase too. That might be new, or I might have just missed that the first time round. So I stick that on top of the gun. The reason I'm doing this as close to the gun as possible is so that you can see the prediction arc directly above this gun. So if you put it miles out to the side, the prediction arc would be from that point miles out to the side, not from the gun barrel itself. I know what you want to do. You want to watch it fire. So let's go on here. Now, as I was saying earlier, we've got the 45 degrees, which is 90 full degrees in turn. As you can see, that's its furthest. Say you had 22, you'd probably only get to there. So you can start to see the reason why you'd want a larger azimuth and a larger elevation. So we can go both ways. The motorized barrels just extend the length that you can have the 45 degrees for, or the adjustment for. Anyway, so we're floating. Watch the speed. Ready? I believe that just hit 18. So we had quite a recoil on it, and it has gone straight ahead. Now we're facing north. I don't have an easy way of turning it east. I wonder if I can spawn an AI north. Typically no. So what I'm going to do is fall off the boat. It's not really a boat. I'm going to spawn a vehicle dead in front of us. So let's use bait base. I demonstrated this in my engine tutorial. I'm going to stick it on the Onyx watch, so it's on a different team. There we go, there it is. So that is literally in front of the gun now. I should find it difficult not to hear that. So this is what this does. So there's no AI and it's dead. So this was a solid metal rear. I'm pretty sure that was the AI killing it, not me. I think I've got one with AI in it somewhere. Give me a moment. Let me just check. Typical, no. Let's take another shot. So this is versus metal. You can see the sort of effect it does against metal. It's not brilliant. It takes a little while to reload. It's a total of 5.7 seconds. It's gone again. So I'm going to load up a boat made out of wood. So you can kind of get an idea of what it can do against wood then. What's made out of wood? I've got a really bad, not made pirate boat. That'll do. There we go, something to fire at that's made of wood. Now this is going to be fun. Look at the size of that hole. So, you get an idea of what kind of damage it can really do now. I'm going to fire one more shot. Look at that. It's lost half the boat. Now it's going, obviously, because it's a dead AI. So, this is how you make a CRAM cannon in fairly basic form. Put it together with an axis, and you can turn it all the way around. You can have a longer barrel, and you can have much more accuracy, speed, range. Stick more bits on it. Stick more gauge increases. Stick more connectors along the side. Add more autoloaders. Add more ammo boxes. You can make these super, super powerful. They are the most devastating weapon in the game. I'm using the word devastating rather than powerful because other weapons can do a much higher penetration. For example, you can really get the advanced cannons up. It's also possible to do with lasers. However, I've not got a lot of experience in them yet, so at some point I will be demonstrating them. There we have it. One CRAM cannon capable of 90 degrees in 4 directions.